Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Fail with Fire. I'm your podcast host, Phoenix Ha, and CEO of AdBeacon, my favorite first-party data attribution platform and optimization platform. And today I'm just like, okay, I'm always stoked for guests, but this one is very special to me in a different way. When I was coming up in the space, barely coming up, I would even say, I got on a plane to Dubai, bright-eyed, totally didn't know what was going on. And I saw this guy in the lounge and I'm like, he looks familiar. And then I had the balls to go up to him when we were on the plane and bother him, clearly, and go, hey, are you a speaker? And that ended up sparking a really great friendship now over 2 years later. And we get to have a great conversation. He's also a huge heavyweight in the space, especially in affiliate marketing. So before I do the full introduction, welcome to the podcast, Jason Akatiff.
Yeah. So happy to be here. Super excited you're putting your podcast together and happy to be a guest.
I'm honored to have you. I'm always honored. And it's nice to put our friendship recorded so you can see, everyone can understand our dynamic too.
By the way, it's crazy. We've only known each other 2 years. I feel like it's longer.
I see you maybe twice a year.
Yeah.
But it's always old friends. I'm like, oh my gosh, hi, it's Jason. And usually if I go to a conference, I like stick straight to Jason, not because I'm scared to meet other people, it's just because it's more fun. And we talk about things I think that matter. There's this common misconception that you hang out with people that are legendary in the space because you want something from them. And the only thing I want from Jason is a fun time, good conversation. And I think also too, you ask really compelling questions. And if there is ever a time that I'm in a really low point, I'm not scared to call you because you're not going to judge me. You're just going to ask me questions that make me think. And I will say as an introduction to you, there was one quote from you that really resonated with me. I was having a really hard time. I called you. I remember I was pacing my pool and was talking to Jason. And I was like, Jason, I don't know what to do about these partners, about this, about that. And you're like, do you trust these people? And I was like, no. And you're like, that's a really shitty place to be. Like, I'm sorry. That's really unfortunate that you don't trust your circle. And that moment of silence actually stuck with me, and it still does in my decision-making, where I go, okay. So I addressed it with those people. We hashed it out. I was very straightforward with them, but it was probably one of the most impactful things that you've ever said to me. And it was so simple. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I see you as a builder. Like, you like to build things. And I'm a builder as well. And being a builder, I don't really have any fear, right? Because, okay, yeah, it would suck to lose stuff. And I built stuff that I've lost and hasn't gone well, but here we sit and we're fine. Like, it sucks going through that process, but and I try and always come from the position, like, what would I build? What if I didn't do this? What would I do? And I love to go into that headspace and think about that. I think it's super valuable. And then weigh that against what you've got and then decide whether and what makes sense, right? You're like, actually, there's a lot of good, I like first principles, which is what Elon Musk uses a lot. It's like, a lot of times I like go look at that thing that I have that's so painful, and I just tear it down to the studs, basically. First principles. What are the pieces that are there? Are they good? And then is anything in there not salvageable? And if it, or do I need to have a bunch of really hard conversations with people or groups? And then like, okay, it's worth saving if I can have these hard conversations and they go right. But I've got to go through that process for me. Like, what else would I do instead? What do we have here? And is it really valuable? And is the opportunity as I once saw it? Because I think as entrepreneurs, some of the hardest part is like, what are those signposts in the road, or what, as you got your roadmap, or it's this weird thing. And as an entrepreneur, you're like head down, like, I must make this work. Nobody can get in my way. I'm going to drive forward. But then every once in a while, you got to pop your head up and go, does it make sense to keep doing that? Yeah. And it's almost like in direct contrast of that bullheaded determination. But I found myself paddling upstream a lot of times, like in really rapid currents. And I'm like, there's got to be an easier way, Right.
But that's
So,
the cool thing about you is that you're pretty honest about it. Like you're not always going to be in the green, and I'll call you and you're like, I'm good. I'm going through it, Phoenix. I'm like, I love that humility and that honesty and the transparency, because the people that
yeah.
are always telling me that they're winning, I know for a fact they're not. And then that disingenuous nature is something that I don't want to align with. You've always been very straightforward. And
Yeah.
let me give everybody the professional introduction of who you are. And I would like to go into the failures too, because I know you have a lot, but you also have a lot of triumphs. But this podcast is not about your triumphs. Sorry, Jason. So this is your only moment of triumph is here. So you are very passionate, but you're also an angel investor, entrepreneur, and advisor in business, including online marketing, lead generation, advertising, e-commerce, and education. You have over 25 years of experience as heads of companies, and you've mastered building, inspiring, and leading teams of top performers. You also believe A-level people create A-level companies, which I've actually heard you say. For culture and growth of acceleration, and most importantly, Jason, is that the products and services that he provides are truly building value. And in the users' and minds, turn them into huge fans of the product. So it's not just giving you a product, it has the value behind it and the ethos behind it. I think that was a very humble introduction that you provided to me, but let me give some perspective on Jason's weight in the space really quickly. Let's give you a story. I meet Jason, like I said, in the airplane, didn't know who he was. And he tells me to hang out and he'll take me under his wing and introduce me to all the other speakers. And mind you, I was brand new. And we go to an event and right away we get swarmed by these men and they're going straight to Jason. And they're like, oh my God, that's Jason Akatiff. And I'm like, what? Who are you? Who cares? Because we talk shit to each other. That's our friendship. But you know who this is? I'm like, no, I'm just walking with him. But they were just so in awe and they call you the godfather of affiliate marketing.
I've been around. I'm old, Phoenix.
Young at heart, old. I don't think you're old. We wouldn't get along if you were old.
Young at heart for sure. Been in the space a long time. I think the affiliate space and the affiliate marketing world is filled with a bunch of bad people that are short-sighted in their mindsets and, cash grabby and, here today, gone tomorrow. And I've always been a community person, like from the very early days. So spent a ton of time on forums. That's how I came up through Wicked Fire and Stack That Money. And then obviously Stack That Money guys built Affiliate World. But really a lot of my mission now is I think the best marketers in the entire world come out of affiliate marketing. And I can say that with confidence because these people do all of the things, right? They don't live in any kind of silo. And they need to write copy. They need to build landing pages. They probably need to do some server management. They need to build their own ads. They need to understand Photoshop and buy traffic and then do their own business development. Like it's a really hard thing, but that dexterity and versatility out of the people that are really good out of the space, like they get it like end to end. And what's super interesting about that now for me is sometimes I go and I start talking with a Fortune 500 company and I meet the CMO and they came up through affiliate lineage, right? They're like, oh, I know you. You used to help everybody on Wicked Fire back in the day. And a passion of mine is just like, how can you help enough other people be successful? There's I can't remember his name right now, but he basically says, if you help enough other people get what they want, that you'll get what you want. And I've always really taken that to heart. Like, how do I help people around me? How do I give to them without asking? And the universe will pay you back in magical ways. Have I been taken advantage of? Yes. Have I been scammed? Yes. Have I been screwed over by partners or friends? Yes. I've had all that stuff happen, but I've also had a lot of amazing things happen and really had that the skewed version of the world, right? One of the core values in our company, part of it is we trust first, right? So it's team first is the core value. And we trust you come into our business and you say you can do a thing. We trust you, right? Until you prove us that you can do it. And so I guess all that to say, I love helping other people. I love educating other people. And you were just another person that I met and you seemed excited.
Just another person.
Excited and passionate. And then that developed into a good friendship. So. Like, at that moment in time, you were another person, right?
Fair. Look, I'm just waiting for you to talk shit. You can do that on this podcast because that is the true representation of our friendship. But talking shit, my favorite memory. Okay, I have a lot of favorite memories, but we were at an event, and this is the first time you met my fiance, who by the time this is out, maybe I'll be married. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, we're standing there, and Ryan's just standing next to you, and this person goes, "So what do you do?" And they don't know you yet, right? And you're like, "Oh, I build yachts." And I fucking died. I was like, this is so good. And that's your new intro because that is your passion right now. And I love that, and still bring some fun to the dynamic, right? And there's not this whole like, holy shit, this is this person. I think that so it robs the opportunity of getting to know the actual person.
Yeah.
But I guess that leads me to my next thing of the real person. And I like to ask this question because the 10 degrees of separation, the people who introduce you often introduce who you are versus what you do. And I like to take it back to like a really fun barbecue at a house. And let's just pretend that we're at a barbecue and your wife or your children or somebody who's really close to you that's 10 degrees separated from what we do for work. How would they introduce you to me? And what would they say that you do for work?
That's such a tough question. But I think if it was my wife, she'd probably introduce me as a entrepreneur type person, or that's in the internet advertising world, probably very basic like that. It reminds me of a time we went to a comedy club together, and we love comedy clubs. And there was this amazing comedian on the stage. And it was like, we were sitting in the front row, unfortunately. So we got singled out and picked on. Yeah. And she was a dentist. And they asked, "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, you're a dentist." "Oh, that's great." And whatever, some jokes. And then it's, what does he do?" She's, he sells things on the internet. She's like eBay. And she starts making fun. It starts making fun of, "Oh, I see you got a sugar mama that you're all hooked up with here. You got some guy that says he's selling stuff on the internet, says it's on eBay." But probably keep it fairly broad. By the way, if I ever introduce, somebody asks me what I do, I say I build boats. Most likely, I don't actually want to talk to them.
Oh, we know. We know. It's completely obvious.
If I want to talk to somebody about business, I'll say what I actually do. But otherwise, I'm like, "Oh, I'm a boat builder." "Oh, what are you doing here?" "I just came to hang out and learn how to market my boats at the shows."
That same introduction, I don't know if you remember this girl, she was a sales rep, and she came up to you, and I told her who you were, right? So she finally woke up because you told her, "I build boats," right? And I was dying because I knew exactly what you were saying. You're like, "Please go away." And you're like hanging out with Ryan. And she's, "Oh, that's what he does?" So she was like, I'll never forget this. She was trying to add you on LinkedIn, but she was so LinkedIn illiterate that she basically asked you to sign into your own LinkedIn off. And you're like, "Why are you asking me to sign?"
Yeah, I remember that was in Tennessee, in Nashville.
Yeah, it was in Nashville. I was dying. I was like, oh man, who's going to tell her? But no, I love that because I think also too, there's a beauty to not telling people what you do so you can understand who they are, like we discussed prior. And also what's funny too is that like often when Ryan is having he's a winemaker and he does that, I'll go to his events and people ask me what I do for work. And I go, "I'm the janitor. Like I just clean shit up all day. I don't want to tell you what I do. It's about him." Right. And you just elevate that person. And you're so tired of going to events and telling everybody what you do to validate why they should talk to you. And you're in a really cool space where it's the opposite. So you get to decide. I think everyone should be able to decide, but I think that's really cool, which kind of leads me to, again, the next section, which I don't know if this is what you want to discuss specifically about your come up. And because you made a joke at the comedy club that she was your sugar mama, but I know that in the beginning, the dynamics were very different and that came up through some really hard times. But let's introduce the reason why we did this podcast. It's Fail with Fire. Often we forget about the failures. We don't want to discuss the failures. We only want to talk about the triumphs. But the fire that comes from these failures is often the catalyst to incredible moments and incredible things that continuously drive you towards whatever success or failures down the road again. But they always teach you a lesson, which is why these conversations are so important. So I guess that comes to me to ask you, walk us through a failure or multiple, Jason.
Yeah, we just went through some failures here in the first few quarters of this year, but I'll get to that a little bit later. number one, the thing that drives me more than anything else is becoming better as a person, right? It's not the money. It's just like, I want to learn. I want to become better. I want to surround myself with better and better people. And then as a byproduct of that, it creates opportunities for all the people that work with you or your partners or whatever. So I really focus on that. Jim Rohn, who was Tony Robbins' mentor, he talked about that a lot. Like one of my favorite things is work harder on yourself than you do in your business, right? Like work harder on yourself than you do in your business. And then the other thing that he said that really plays into that is the marketplace pays you based on the value you bring to it. So if you think about that, as you become better, the marketplace will reward you for that and pay you more. Now, whether that's an entrepreneur or as a key role in a company, all of that is great. And I say this because my passion is building bigger and bigger things, because you learn more and more as you go through the process. And that is involved with lots of failures, big failures. So there's a concept inside of just in general that is called the valley of death. So as a company scales, you need certain people in order to get you from here to here. And then what will happen is as the rubber band gets extended past that point, like it'll snap back or it'll break or it'll do whatever. And you go through this valley of death where you could go bankrupt, you could go out of business, you could run out of cash, the market dynamics maybe change. But then if you're able to restructure and go through that, then you're going to have this another storm, norm, whatever that thing is called, transform, perform, right? And get up to that next level. And then you're going to go through that again. And so us as a business, like I started as an affiliate marketer for 5 years by myself, out of the house, working alone. But I had a great network of people that I talked to every day, but it was my own thing. And then I moved that to project partners. And in that, like everything went to zero always, right? As an affiliate marketer, you're probably not going to be running the same thing 1 to 2 years apart, right? You're going to figure something out. You're going to hit it out of the park. You're going to make a bunch of money and then you're going to go to zero. So this kind of prepped me for, okay, if things go to zero, I know how to rebuild. But then I started the network. I bought it from a friend of mine for 20 grand, built that up, stumbled into free trial supplements and scaled that business to almost 50 million in 2 years' time, 50 million revenue a year in 2 years' time. Then I got sued by the Federal Trade Commission, and 95% of the business was in supplements. There was partners on both sides of the business, both on the advertiser, product owner side and on the affiliate side that were doing things that weren't compliant apparently. And we got caught in the middle of that. So we settled down.
Flex, Jason. I'm not going to lie. Like we got sued by the Federal Trade Commission.
Yeah.
Kind of a flex because you're like, yeah, I did that. Sorry.
Well,
I had to say.
For me, it's like, as I look through failures. So this lawsuit, actually, they sent us a subpoena. And for 2 years, we were negotiating back and forth with the FTC. And then finally, it's okay, we're going to sue you. We sued and settled in the same day for $1 million. And this is all public information that anybody can find. And I don't hide it. It's very much a learning experience for me. So I had the option to continue doing that stuff, but outside of the US. But I came back and I said, you know what? I don't ever want to build a business again that's built on unstable footing and doesn't really bring value to the market. So I shut down basically 95% of our revenue. So we were running about 30,000 a day, and I'm an affiliate marketer in my background. So everything's by the day, gross profit. And I think we had 17, 18,000 a day in overhead. So in one day, we went to 4,000 a day in gross profit with 17,000 in overhead. And I remember walking into the office and I looked at the desk where my assistant sat. And I just imagined myself setting $14,000 on the desk, pouring gasoline on it and lighting it on fire.
Yep.
And then going to work for 14 hours to try and fix that problem. And there was a guy named Phil, and so I started running Auto Insurance Legion, and there was a company that was going to sell at the time. They wanted to scale massively. Some people found their way out the door because they can't reinvent themselves. So that's, supplements, cool. I'm just going to go to another supplement company, which just brought some of the costs down. Some people got too stressed out and too fearful and left. And at some point in a month, things normalized inside of the business. But that was a really major failure for us. That almost crushed the business, honestly. I had another one that I didn't know anything about credit. And I was in that supplement space and I was just like, oh, credit. Yeah, everybody pays. They don't quite often. And so we were extended out we'd made a good amount of money, and then we'd extended out about $4 million in credit terms. And then there was a bunch of problems with merchant processing, and all these people that owed us money basically went out of business. And so I had almost $4 million in receivables not get paid. That left me with $150,000 in the bank. And that was all I had to pay employees. I think I was at like 90 or 100,000 in P at that point in time, or in cost and expense, and had to go figure out how to run a campaign in order to support the company. And I've got
a stress-inducing podcast now. I've decided this is officially this most stressful inducing podcast because we're just going to talk about all the times we're almost at zero, and if not already at zero, and we have to pay. Oh, okay. Keep going. I just need a breather. Keep going. Okay.
Yeah. Some of the other really stressful times are like, you have a leader inside of the business and they have scaled you to a certain point, but they don't have the tools to scale you to that next step. And going through that transition process is probably one of the most painful experiences of my life, and can demise the business, right? Because you've got all of these people that person most likely hired, managed, and trained that are attached to them. Now you need to restructure the business in order to take it to that next level up. And I've probably gone through that 4 times. And somebody that was basically your best friend that you worked with in side by side for 8 hours a day for 5+ years. And at one point in the business, they were like absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But then as the business scales and it needs more infrastructure, because as a business grows, like, it's interesting that from an entrepreneurial mindset, like when you start a business, it's all about hustle, right? Like, you got to hustle, you got to put stuff together, you got to wear 175 hats. And then as the business grows, like, you just can't sustain. So then you've got to, most likely you're going to find, or at least me, I went through a process of finding helpers, but no middle management, right? And then the next phase of that is like, how do you hire that middle manager and effectively manage them, hold them accountable to the group below? But then there's like another level of that, which is, how do you hire managers that hire those people? And that valley of death thing is really that process.
You pinpointed something so interesting. There's a couple things I really want. I think this, out of all the failures, not to say the other ones weren't terrible and worth discussing, I think this is one that nobody discusses, is that there's 2 routes you can take, at least in my opinion. You get to a point where you need to really aggressively scale, and you have somebody that maybe you feel like isn't the right person for that next level. And part of you, like you said, you have an emotional tie to. So you can make a decision to either invest in them for them to educate themselves to be better, or you have to be cutthroat and decide it's just not worth the risk.
They have to want to.
So if that's your barometer, like, they have to want to, you're going to give them the opportunity, or are you going to just cut them out? Where's your head at with that?
100% of the time, give them the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
However, the challenge that I've experienced in the past, and this has happened on a number of occasions, is it's like, there's a certain level of ego that people have for who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And to humble yourself and say, hey, I ran this thing, or I led this division, or I've got this bravado and this ego, and I'm this person. And there's my favorite sales book is called You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike in a Seminar. And there's one chapter in there, and it's called Role versus Identity. And like, people start attaching their identity to their role, right? I'm a VP. And rather than that just being a title, they start to say, this is who I am as my identity as a person. So you actually, in order to become somebody different, you actually have to decouple those things and say, actually, to get to that next step, I suck. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to have to humble myself. Yeah, I was good at that thing before, but like, I have to totally humble myself and be a sponge from everybody around me, where before I was the rock that everybody looked up to. And I was the one. So it's almost like it's a really weird process to go through. And I've done it probably 20 times over my career, where it's like, hey, you're an affiliate. Now I run a network, and now we invest in stuff or build companies, or like, I've had to become somebody different for each of those things. So you've got to leave who you were and all the things you knew at the door and say, okay, I want to learn this. I'd love to learn about investment banking and how investment banking works and how to raise a private equity fund. Like, it's super interesting to me, because then you can empower great entrepreneurs. So like, understanding that world, their speak, how they do stuff. If I show up and I act like I know everything to those people, I can't possibly learn.
Your honesty, Jason, like, it's so interesting. Like, you've been there through so much of my seasons, right? I'm a baby in this, and I'm grateful that I have you here as not only a friend, but a mentor in some capacity. And I go, hey, like, when you first met me, I was the director of paid social for an agency, right? I didn't know what I was going to do next. And you asked me, like, what are you going to do next? I'm like, I don't know. To be honest with you, I have no clue. And then I was given the opportunity for AdBeacon and to build something great. And then also to become the CEO and co-founder. Like, what a beautiful place to be. However, have I been a CEO before? Absolutely not. Do I know everything? Absolutely not. I'm very lucky that I got my EMBA and have a grasp on the things that I need to do, but no. And what you said really resonated with me is, I know that I'm going to get to a point, hopefully I can scale AdBeacon to a degree where I do remove myself and I put somebody else who can be this. Like, and it was a really sobering, I have the benefit of watching people like yourself and all my friends in the space that have gone through the mistakes, the mishaps, and then I'm able to reflect and go, okay, what are you going to do? And number one, it's like not attaching, like you said, the title to the person, because I believe that for me, self-brand, you'll know that no matter what I create, it'll be at a really high level of execution and efficacy. Okay. So whether that be AdBeacon now and something down the road later, it's there. Also, there's the role of CEO, and CEO is so much more heavy than I thought it was. It's a really fun title because you go to the ceiling. You're like, okay, I'm really good at executing things. And so for me, I have this really toxic trait, and I've discussed this with some people. It's every team that I go into, I get very psychotic in the sense where I work and I work everyone out. Not saying that you're a bad person or that you're mean to anyone. I just naturally work everyone out. And then I get very bitter towards my supervisor. There's also something that also turns where I start to see the human side of them and I go, oh, you're not as great as I thought you were. Not that I can do it better, but I just don't respect you anymore, which is a very scary turning point to be at. And I've done this over and over again. And now as a CEO, I have partners and things like that. And I go, I have to actively tell myself, you cannot do that because you will ruin everything. And also the side of ego and go, and there's going to be a time, Phoenix, where you aren't the shit. You got to find somebody who will take AdBeacon to the next level and you need to step out. So what you said really hit home for me. I'd love to hear your perspective on that, but yeah.
One of the things that, by the way, I have the same tendencies that you do. The thought process I have around that now, learning from my new COO, is you're actually potentially they are that person. And because you come in and stomp on them, and you come in and take over the dialogue and the hard conversations, you might not be doing the right kind of question asking. And I still do this, right? It's, how do you think we got here? Or rather than coming in with an answer, come in with lots of questions and then challenge with more questions. I understand that you see things that way. What if you didn't see it that way? Look, what if you saw it this way? Play the steel man or steel woman for a second and fight the other side. What if that wasn't true? Become a really strong, great question asker rather than having the answers. And I think coming into, a lot of probably who you've had to be that I know of you is you've had to prove yourself to people. Hey, I'm a female and I'm coming up. I need to prove to everybody that I'm smart and I'm the smartest person in the room.
I think I'm over that now. I think 2 years has made me come over it. But yes, you're right. Continue.
But at the same time, I think truly being the leader, being the CEO, being a founder, Alex Hormozi, I can't remember the 4 things, but he basically boils down successful founders and CEOs to 4 things. And I think the number 1 is a certain amount of narcissism. And it's just being honest about that, right? You believe you're better than other people, right? That's why you think you can do it. I sold franchises for a number of different franchise companies, and I watched all these people and I'm like, these people are terrible. How are they ever going to be successful? And that was ultimately my narcissism trait, that I think I'm better than other people. I'm in a much different place in my life, but coming up, that's very much what drove me. I was like, I understand 95% of the people fail, but they suck. That was my mindset. I don't live there anymore.
But you're on the other side of the mountain. That's why you don't live there anymore. I think you have to have this. I'm very confident, and whether or not that's a narcissism play or not, I know who I am because I worked really hard to know who I am. And I know you know who you are as well. I think there is a level of narcissism. My mother was practically married to a very wealthy, very powerful person in the medical space for many years. So he was in my life since I was about 8. And he was brutal. He was really fucking brutal. And he is a narcissist. I've told him a million times, and I don't think that even bothers him because he doesn't care. They're just words to him. And he's also an immigrant. He just does not care. And I had to make the decision of that ruthlessness. Do I take a hit on the potential quote unquote success that I will have down the road if I decide to be a better person? I actually have had this conversation with myself. You're one of the very few people that have been extremely successful in the space that still holds on to their morality. But I think too, there is a level and the degree that you're absolutely hitting in terms of narcissism. And that's why I asked you the question of, do you give someone the opportunity to step up to the plate, or do you just cut them out? Because
100% give them the opportunity.
That's the morality. That's the heart. Because that isn't technically maybe the best for the business. If we really logistically thought about it, yes, maybe it would be, because to onboard a new person and to offboard another and the potential PR nightmare and all the things that could happen, yes, maybe it's easier to build from within. But if we really just looked at the numbers, it might also be far more detrimental to keep somebody on there that maybe won't learn at the pace that somebody else is already seasoned at. So I see both sides of the coin.
I think it's difficult in a high growth company. In a slow growth company, it's easier. In a really high growth company, for somebody to learn that skill set in a fast enough time for it to be impactful is difficult.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing that I've seen historically is, let's take a creative director, right? I've never been a creative director. Say we've got somebody they're the top in the company, but now we realize when we hired them, we thought that they were going to be that real leader, right? And then once they're here and you start to understand more of how it all works, you're like, they're really good at this operational piece, or they're really good at this ideation piece, or they're really good at this. And they can lead, we call it LMA, lead, manage, and accountability, hold people accountable, right? They can do that stuff. But what you really need is somebody up here, right, that can view not just ads, but maybe they view landing pages, and they view TV commercials, and they view lots of different stuff. And this person's never done that.
We talked about this. We talked about this role prior, remember? It's really difficult. It's seldom will you ever find somebody who has the performance brain and the creative brain in one. And then you're also asking for the arc of leadership. Yeah. What? You're like looking for the Holy Trinity, and then you're going for $100,000. And you're like, it's going to happen, man. Like, not saying that we're going to pay them, but to your point.
Where I was trying to go with that was, in order for that person to move from this level of leadership and knowledge, experience, and understanding to here is a really long path. Doesn't mean it's not possible. It just means it's a long path. And if they don't have anybody here to learn that path from, and they've got to figure it out on their own with no leader up here to show them the way and accelerate that growth curve, like, it's going to take 10 times as long.
Right.
So you almost have to hire that leader in up here to help them learn. Yes, you made it to here. We'll bring in this next person into the organization that's been part of 1,000-person company. You've run 150, right? Like, because it's different. It's a different thing in there. And then you're going to be able to learn from this person as a mentor. Now, there's a lot involved with that. Can this person check their ego as they thought they were going to be this person, right? That's really difficult. I would say half the time they can't, right? Half the time
I would be able to either. I don't know if you would be able to either. Now you, as where you are, probably because you see it from the other side, right? There was this conversation. It was like employee mentality versus business owner mentality. As a business owner, you see it. But as an employee, you go, no, I put my blood, sweat, there's sweat equity here. And I put that in there, and Jason's not going to recognize that. Love that word. I deserve this. You don't deserve shit. I don't deserve shit. None of us deserve any of the good things or the bad things in life. And
100% agree with that. So I don't know. It's, again, that's all that valley of death, right?
Yeah.
And I would say 50% of the time, somebody can go, I love working here, and I love being part of this team, and I know I'm at my max capacity. I've also had people that you changed the executive team, or you changed the pod that they were working with, and things that you didn't realize were there, they stepped up and became somebody different. And you're like, oh, wow, I never saw these things before. I've seen that happen as well. It's like, always, our goal as an organization, 50% of people become leaders from within. That's one of my passions, is have everybody in the organization want to be leaders. Whether that in leadership doesn't necessarily mean management. They're separate. It's lead, manage, and hold accountable, right? There's those three elements. Management and leadership are different. I want people that want to be leaders, and that could be a thought leader, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to manage a team. But leadership as a concept, I really want everybody here in the organization to think like leaders.
Leadership and management are different. That's actually such a beautiful nugget, because I just had a conversation with somebody from another agency that told me, like, but the person who's above me is a manager. They're not a leader. And I love that, because they can identify. They're like, great at task management. But like, every time we get on a phone call, he doesn't ask me or tell me how to be better. He doesn't tell me the downfalls that I have and challenge me. All he does is tell me, did you call the client? Did you do the checklist? Did you do this? Why haven't you? And like a tiger mom versus, tiger mom's maybe not the best example, because tiger moms push you to be better too. But I think that's beautiful. Now,
you find these parallels a lot of places, by the way, like in product development, you've got like a product manager that's more of a leadership, visionary mindset, and they work with the stakeholders and they've got this vision and they're driving this vision and they're very much a leader, but they typically are going to work with a project manager that's like on time and on task and make sure that the product gets delivered on time. So that's, again, the manager on the project manager versus a product manager, which is more visionary.
Yeah. I self-identify now because I used to be really good at executing, but I realize I'm really good at executing my own tasks. I don't like to manage people to do the things, right? I've been very blessed to have a team that I think it might have been the dynamic, but I expect a level of excellence because I will always bring that to the table in case like maybe they're out sick and I have their back. So I'll do it 10 times better than they would have ever expected. So then they know that the level of excellence is at a high barometer. But as I'm in this position now, I have no fucking interest in micromanaging. I have no interest in doing that. I want to see these things propel. I want to meet the right people to get in the right spaces so then AdBeacon's more relevant, or I get more introductions to bigger clients and agencies and et cetera. And I don't want to think about the mundane bullshit of, did you answer that email? And if you can identify what those things are, in my opinion, there's strengths, but it's always an uphill battle. Like I'm still learning.
I think what you're talking about is more rainmaking, right?
Okay.
That's like rainmaking versus business building. We talk about in the business versus on the business a lot, right?
Right.
And where my brain is 80% of the time is the working on the business, the roles and accountability, right? Like I want people that are leaders in every role. And so for us, we have what's called an accountability chart. It's similar to an org chart, but different. And this is like functional areas of the business and what are people accountable for? And then what is the role and responsibility definition? And then what are the maximum three KPIs that role of responsibility is responsible for? And then how do those KPIs roll up inside of the business in order to determine whether it's working or not? And then which of those KPIs are on or off course? Then everybody in their role has super clarity on what's going on. And
they are like an objective.
Like an OKR. Yes.
Yeah.
Similar KPI, OKR, same thing. And once you have that structure figured out, and us as entrepreneurs, our problem is we're always trying to do more. And oftentimes we're fracturing, like that never gets to where it needs to be because we keep adding more on to people's plates. And the hardest thing as an entrepreneur is to do less. And so one of the things we do in our quarterlies is we do an exercise of what should we stop doing? And everybody has an axe to grind and everybody has an agenda and everybody has politics on, oh, this is my initiative. And it's, yeah, but should we keep doing it? What should we stop doing inside of the business until you get to a point where you're got just like this core thing, or in SaaS, like your business, it might be like, oh, we should go after this market and this ICP and this IPC and this ICP is an opportunity. And it's nope. What's the one ICP? And then how do you narrow the scope of that one ICP, right? You're like, for you, it's like direct to consumer Shopify stores is our ICP, but then it's like businesses from this size to this size, businesses that are running on at least 3 ad platforms, businesses narrowing that scope down and then being able to say no to anybody that doesn't fit into that bucket. And then how do you get the marketing message right to the market to make sure that market understands that you're the best in the world at that one thing?
A timely conversation, Jason, because we just did this exercise because I'm like, we're not growing at the rate that I need to for break even and for MRR, for potential investment. If that's something that we want to do, how are we going to get there? Because we had so many different price points we were testing, and that's just part of the game. And we had so many different approaches where we're going after brand, where we're going after agency. What were we going after? High tier media buyers. We had a lot of very, again, the word sobering conversations with ourselves. And I was just like banging my head against the wall. What are we going to do? So full transparency, this is what I've decided. And I'm so glad you said this. We're going after agencies only. Yes, we have a product that can adhere to brands, but I'm not going after them right now.
What type of agencies?
So e-commerce agencies that have a minimum 10 clients with over $1 million in revenue per month. Okay. And paid media agencies that are predominantly Facebook.
Okay.
Okay. So the majority of their spend is on Facebook. right? So what did I do? I created a very aggressive price point for agencies and favored them. And also told them like, hey, you get locked in at this rate. This is how many clients you need to have with us for you to be locked in at this rate. And we'll give you a 90-day guarantee, money back guarantee.
But it's also really important. It's like, why are you the best solution for that client? And what is your unique selling proposition against the competition? It's as you narrow in on that ideal customer profile or ICP, like, why does your product deliver the best in the world compared with every other competitive set? They're trying to solve these problems. We solve this problem, which ultimately is, how is it? Because they don't want to actually solve that problem. They want whatever that solving that problem is going to get them to, right? The benefit of solving that problem.
Yeah. And I get asked this question all the time. I used to struggle with it. And then I sat back and I was like, no, I built this for a reason. And let me get back to that reason. I think there's this battle in the SaaS world of whose tech is better. And I think you're always going to lose on that hill because you don't know everybody's tech. You can't criticize someone's tech.
The customer doesn't know either. The customer doesn't know the tech at all.
So this is what I've always said, because everyone thinks I'm the enemies with a Triple or a Northbeam or a Hyros. I'm not. What I said is there's a hard flag in the sand, and that's first-party data. And how you get to that flag is very different. My competitors are very focused on C-suite and very focused on reporting. I'm focused on the media buyer, the tacticians that are actually making the changes, and I built it for them. So we flipped everything, how we get there, how we do reporting, how we take what Facebook already built beautifully and put it on steroids with first-party data. I'm not trying to change the game. I'm trying to make it more efficient with productivity, reporting, and also results. And we have case studies to prove that. And I think our strongest channel is Facebook. So that's why I'm going after Facebook. I really think we know what we do well. And I also had a usage report. So we wanted the back end of the usage report. We built all these beautiful reports. We built all these beautiful like features and stuff. And then we had to have a gut check and go, what are people actually fucking using? And 80% were just using the Facebook optimization portion of our platform. And of course, that has attribution in it, but I have to listen to that. How do I double down on that? And how do I find those clients?
Right.
And then get better at the other features alongside that, but maybe put 20% to 30% of my efforts there rather than a 50-50 split. So that's more.
Maybe change your product roadmap too, right? As you narrow the scope of your ICP, then those are your stakeholders, your customer stakeholders. Then it's like stakeholder interviews on what would they like, and then consolidate that all into a roadmap.
Yeah. I think it's it's a juxtaposition though, because what happens is that you get on a demo call, right? And everyone goes, okay, great, you have Facebook, but you have everything else. Because if you don't have everything else, then you're not of value, even though 90% of them are probably not even going to use any of the other features. They really came for Facebook. But if you have all the other features, then you're already out of the game. So
maybe you've got the wrong ICP.
Maybe. Or
your ICP should go, there shouldn't, do you have this and do you have this feature and do you have that feature, right? Might not, like if they need that, right? If you're dealing with a CMO for a $300 million company that reports up to a public board, they've got different problems to solve versus an affiliate marketer that spends $100,000 a day running Facebook ads. Maybe that's your ICP. Again, I don't know. But if you built it for the media buyer, the media buyers typically don't make buying decisions. That's the challenge.
They don't make the buying decisions of a platform, but the agencies do. So that was a very interesting conversation we had. I like how it just became a working session, and we'll go into the hot takes, and this is why I love our friendship. But then we had to sit back and go, okay, our competitors do this thing where they own the client. The client has to go there, they sign up with them. And if they churn under the agency, then there's no loyalty to the agency. It's loyalty to the brand, which I understand the benefits of that. It's actually a very strong move to make. And we're taking a risk and we're saying, let's do it the opposite way. Let's favor the agency. And how we favor the agency and how we adhere to the agency too, is like the agencies can't incur a very high cost platform either. So how do we make it work? So we had to make have those really difficult conversations with ourselves. And my business partner and co-founder, he's an agency owner. So I had to sit there and go, would you pay for this? And he's, of course I would. I'm like, no, you wouldn't, because I've worked on
pay for it.
What?
will Nick pay for it?
Yeah, I don't know. I have to talk to him. Like,
Yeah.
and that's the conversation. And let's just say if I went to Nick and said, how much would you pay for a tool? Because right now your clients are paying for the tool and you have the benefit of using it.
Yeah.
But what if you used it as a benefit or something that you need to use, like for example, like a Supermetrics or
Value add.
Obviously, what was that?
Yeah. Value add.
Exactly. All these different platforms you use to do your job better.
Yeah.
And let's say you bring in a new client, you're saying, hey, I use AdBeacon, which is what you need to use in today's world. Otherwise, you're not going to win. And by joining us, this is the line item, how much it costs, but you get it at a discounted rate. And if you want to go to them directly, it's going to be a lot more expensive.
And you almost have to put yourself into, so you've got like the stakeholder that is maybe the agency owner or the CMO of the agency or whatever that's around tool adoption. But then you almost have to put yourself into the role or maybe even do stakeholder interviews with the salespeople, right? If you had this as a sales tool to sell against the competition as a value add, how would you sell it? And really start to understand some of that as well. Because how does it become a competitive advantage or a weapon in the market at that level?
And we beta tested that concept too with the agency that my co-founder owns, right? Because it's two separate companies altogether and have access to anything. So I just want to make that very clear. But we did a beta with their clients, 40 clients, when we were developing AdBeacon. And what we had done after is, okay, use this as a potential value prop and also a leg up in your sales pitches. And we started seeing that agency was bringing in higher tier clients. I would say more business savvy clients as well, the partnership types versus the execution need type. And it brought in a much more sophisticated group of potential clients. And I'm like, this is how it's a bonus. Because we even talked about white labeling. What does that look like? Does that devalue? Do we care about value? Do we want to exit? There's so many questions. But again, we celebrated our 1-year anniversary in August. We're still babies. We're still learning. Thank you. We're still alive. And then you text me all the time going, when are you done?
Yeah, because you're going to come work with me as soon as you're done.
Yeah, as your personal assistant. Imagine that's when you know something happened is when you get an email from me. Jason is available at 12 p.m. PST.
That would be awesome.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is your biggest promo. But anyway, let's go into hot takes because I think this was really fun. Thank you, Jason. But what is a hot take you have right now, whether it be in space, life? What is something spicy you want to bring to the table?
I would say just for me, and I'm not in the trenches buying media. I'm not doing all that stuff. The place I live, if I could tell anybody as a leader, entrepreneur, leader in a business, like it's such a superpower to know how to hire great leaders. And it's taken me a very long time to figure it out. And I feel like we have just like an unbelievable executive team now. And then I'm seeing a junior level of leaders mature underneath them and very fast. Doesn't have to be a slow thing. But man, I'll tell you, it just really opens your eyes to like how you can build a big company quickly. Because as I mentioned to you before, like who you need to be an affiliate media buyer is scrappy hustler, know everything, right? You don't need to manage up to leadership or investors, and you don't need to manage down to a team, right? You're just doing everything. Then you hire some people underneath you and you need to learn how to manage down, but they're not leaders, right? And you still have nobody to manage up to. And then at some point when you can learn how to hire leaders, and I made so many mistakes and we hired lots of wrong leaders into the organization. But now that we've gotten good at hiring leaders into the organization, I look at every business and I'm like, you guys, what you just talked about, right? Like your go-to-market, to me, that's like a strong marketing leader. That doesn't, and by the way, you don't have to, one hot take is you don't have to hire these people, right? You can get them as consultants, right? Like the problem you're trying to solve has already been solved. There's people out there that are really amazing at understanding product market fit and ICPs and all this stuff. And granted, you do marketing, but honestly, and I'm a little further along in my journey, but like buying media and running ads is very different than developing an ICP, product market fit. And there's people out there that are really good at that stuff that you could just grab as a consultant and say, hey, we need some help to really narrowing in our ICP and then our marketing message around that, right? And you don't have to hire that person full time. And they're fractional. They're probably not that expensive. Then the next thing, like for what you're doing, in my mind, I'm like, does she have SDRs? Does she have any SDRs yet? Does she have any BDRs yet? How does account management work within your organization?
I have to assume that nobody knows what your acronyms mean, Jason.
They're basically cold call sales outreach people, like SDRs. They're doing outbound sales in order to bring you clients. BDRs are more high level, like you were talking about, going to an agency and saying, how do we integrate with you as a major partner? Account managers are people that like keep all the trains on time and all that stuff running, right? Because you don't want your SDRs and your BDRs doing account management. That's lower value type stuff. Like it's very important, but you want them closing, you want them on the phone, making those conversations. Okay. And then again, you don't need to hire a sales leader full-time in the business. You can actually hire a consultant to come in and stand that up, or you put those systems and processes in place, put the job descriptions and roles and responsibilities. This is something it took me years to figure out. I probably figured it out a couple of years ago, and I've been doing this for 20 years. So if there's a huge shortcut that I can highly recommend to anybody, it's, we need to do this thing in the business. Cool. Go find a consultant that's already done that thing at 4 or 5 companies. Don't try and hire them in full time. Hire them as a fractional, give them a 30, 60, 90, that is 30-day, 60-day, 90-day target. Keep it at 90 days. Give them a clear roadmap of what needs to be done in that 90 days and what the levels of expectation are. Don't promise them the sun or moon and the stars. Just let's come in, stand this up, 30, 60, 90. Let's get it going and let's see how it goes. And by the way, as part of that process, I need you to hire the person that's going to run this area. Mm-hmm. I need you to stand it up, and I need you to hire the person that's going to run that area of the business because you know how to find amazing ones. We're actually doing this in 2 parts of our business right now. We're also looking like account management. I was talking with Steve Weiss, who's the founder of Mute6, and he has a guy that was his head of his sales or his client success. And like he's a consultant now. So we may bring him in at some point to really have, Steve would tell you like one of the best areas of their business was client success. And this guy ran it. And now he has a consulting firm. So it's like you could bring him in on a 90-day mission. Hey, stand up the best client success, client services division out there. He could get that probably stood up in 90 days. Hire a couple of people into it, maybe even hire a leader over it or fractionally lead it. And then now you got that done. Somebody's great. And also, if you bring somebody in as a consultant, then a lot of the people in the business don't have fear, right? They're like, oh, is this my new boss? It's like, no, we're bringing them in to help stand up and make our systems more efficient, right?
And it's great. I think it's really great because consultants, I will be honest with you. My hot take is I haven't had the best experience with consultants. So I think it's definitely a risk, but what is a little risk without some potential reward down the road? My hot take, and we'll round it out, is you don't have to do things the way you think that they need to be done. And what I mean by that specifically is like getting funding or rubbing elbows with certain people and trying to get what you need to get done. Like you don't have to be in a stuffy room with a specific type of archetype of person and have to be a certain type of way to get there, right? And I think I learned that most recently in the last couple weeks because I'm in a very unique position, right? I have very different hair and I'm a little edgier and I curse and I really don't care. And if you really know me on a personal level, like Jason does, I'll talk shit to you. And that's just my personality. which is not maybe the cookie cutter idea of what you would have in this type of role as CEO when you speak to someone to potentially have funding. And I will tell you a personal experience. Like I went to an event with investors and I felt very uncomfortable, which is fine. You should feel uncomfortable when you want to grow. But I quickly understood when I came home, I was actually really sad. It was the first time I had like imposter syndrome and my confidence went down, which is very rare for me. And it truly was sad. And I sat there and I questioned, should I be in this role? Am I cut out for this? Is this something that I need to be doing? Because this is so fundamentally not me. I felt very disingenuous. I felt like I had to have these really stupid, small conversations, small talk, which I don't thrive in. And then I came to the conclusion that no, fuck everybody. Like, I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it. And I'm going to find the right partners. Mm-hmm. And if they believe in us, then awesome. And if they don't, then I'll do it without it. There's also a level of sense of pride there I'm fully aware of. But I think the most authentic self is going to bring the most incredible reward. And you don't have to do things the way that everyone says that you need to do things. That's my hot take.
It's interesting in the sense that you need to be 100% in alignment with you being your authentic self. And at the same time, you have to know that your authentic self might be wrong.
Correct. Juggle. Yeah,
it's a juggle. And it's the more you can be your authentic self, that is, go into a room and be like, hey, I don't know anything about investment capital. Hey, I'm the stupidest person in the room. I just want to put that all out there to you guys or girls. And so I may say something dumb. So let me just apologize in advance. But you have to have that like inner confidence to be able to go into a room and say you suck and don't know anything, which I do all the time. That's very common for me, the people that know me. Like I love going in a room and being like, oh, I don't know anything about this. And I constantly take that position, right? Because as soon as I'm like, I know a little bit about it, but I don't know the way that you guys do. I know enough to be dangerous, but everybody does things differently. And I'm sure you guys have some magic that you do that I'm not aware of. So let's just start it. Let me ask you some basic questions. Mm-hmm. I may know the answers already, but like that, I have to go through that process. So that's awesome. I've got one other little secret.
Yeah.
Back on the consulting thing, you said you've had bad experiences with consultants. And there is a lot of people that are inauthentic and sell themselves a certain way, right? And so there's two things. There's two bits and pieces there. Number one, remember I told you I was really bad at hiring leaders and people that I was bad at understanding. Somebody told me they were great at something and I didn't know anything about it. So I had just assumed that was the case, right? And that took me a long time to figure out, did they have LMA? Lead, manage, accountability skills? Were they masters of their crafts? Could they be player coaches versus just coaches? Player coach means somebody that like knows how to media buy, but also knows how to run a media buy team, right? That's a player coach. But where I've had a lot of success of finding great consultants is TikTok. I have found some really amazing people on TikTok. And what's cool about TikTok is we hired a sales leader. I probably watched 300 videos of his over 30 days. And I was like, this guy actually knows his shit. Like you couldn't fake the funk that much. And a lot of it wasn't scripted. He'd be like, yeah, I'm driving right now to a sales call with a team member. This is some of the things that we're working on. Like it was very organic in his approach. And so I was like, this is the right person. There was another guy that we ended up buying controlling interest in his company, found on TikTok. Same thing, right? He was talking about content strategies on TikTok. And I was like, this guy knows his shit. And so all that to say, I know people think of TikTok as like girls shaking their ass and dancing to music.
No, that's
but
what
there is some really amazing people on there. And then if you get good at reading people and understanding and reading between the lines, you can see who is really experts at their craft and also potentially has LMA.
I love TikTok. I'm actually having a conversation with someone a little bit later today about TikTok and potentially speaking on the topic. Instead of media buying now, I'm going to talk about organic TikTok, how powerful it is in terms of if you have a media buyer brain and you understand the trends in TikTok and how I think that'll be the new form of UGC. I think the most powerful UGC for media buyers is built by media buyers. To find those people is going to be the gold mine. But then also that level of authenticity on TikTok is true because you see this library of content that isn't just a static image that was usually the case in Instagram. And right now the market is hot because it isn't saturated in the sense like Instagram was, where they started getting management. And I mean, they do, but not nearly as bad. And it's all performance based. So it's really interesting to watch. And I agree with you completely. Okay. I want to wrap this up.
Okay.
Because I want us to be able to, hopefully one day we'll have you back again. But where can people find you to get this wealth of knowledge? I know you have a Twitter.
I do.
Say your Twitter handle.
I'm either Smaxor, SMAXOR, or Jason Akatiff. I'm not sure which one.
Smaxor. It's Smaxor.
Is it Smaxor? That's like my old forum name from back in the day. So I was Smaxor on a lot of things way back when. I'm also on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. You can pretty much find me everywhere. I'm out there. Yeah. Just one thing. Always looking for great entrepreneurs to partner with and or buy their companies, or we're always looking for agencies to potentially acquire, and really just looking for great people. So that's my mission, is find really amazing people to work with. So as soon as you're ready, I can't wait. Just shoot
for me to be your personal assistant.
Hey, by the way, EA is super powerful if you don't have one.
100%, but none like me.
Yeah.
So, Jason, it's been an honor to have you on it. Truly an honor. And it's also an excuse for me to hang out with you as always. But until next time, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your week. And hopefully you got to enjoy this on the treadmill at the gym. Bye.